Hey everybody, Kennis Russell here. I hope you're doing great. Today I'm talking about the original Gibson lawsuit, Gibson versus Ibanez, back in the 70s, and how that lawsuit changed the guitar world for the better. For years I've been saying that my Aria Pro 2 is a lawsuit guitar, but I'm in fact wrong. The term lawsuit guitar is actually very, very specific. Right now, we're going through a thing in the guitar world where Dean is being sued by Gibson and people are all up in arms. But this isn't the first time, and it won't be the last time a guitar company has sued another guitar company. Probably the first most famous lawsuit is in 1977, where Gibson sued this smaller company called Ibanez that was making guitars in Japan. Back in the mid 70s, all kinds of guitar manufacturers were straight up copying Gibson guitars. I mean, they were all over the place, but the lawsuit was Gibson, and basically there's all kinds of people that were doing this. There was Lotus, Graco, Aria Pro 2, Ibanez. I'm gonna miss a bunch of them. There was just a lot of guitars that were direct copies of Gibson guitars, whether it be Les Pauls, whether it be ES style guitars, even like Flying V's, that kind of thing. There was a lot of copying going on. So Gibson basically kind of had to sue somebody in order for people to stop directly copying their guitars. So very similar to the lawsuit that we have now with Dean is, you know, they could have chosen to sue a lot of different people, but they chose to sue Ibanez. And here's the thing, it worked. Ibanez changed the way that they were making guitars, the way that they looked, and actually, I'm really kind of glad that Gibson did do this lawsuit back in the 70s, because now Ibanez is its own brand, it's its own thing. Instead of just making copies of Gibson and Fender and Rickenbacker, they are Ibanez guitars. They stand on their own. So, what makes a guitar a lawsuit guitar, and what makes it a lawsuit era guitar? Well, here's basically what it is. Let me just kind of show you some pictures of what Gibson was finding offensive and what they wanted them to stop. And it really comes down to the headstock. The headstock you can see on this one is not like a Gibson where it's got an open book. This one it's just kind of rounded at the top. I actually really like the way this headstock looks. And so I used to think that anything that was kind of similar headstock shape-ish from the 70s was a lawsuit guitar, but a lawsuit guitar just factors into, is it an Ibanez, and was it in the year before 1977? We don't know all the details of the lawsuit, but we do know that it involved the headstock. That was the big complaint that Gibson had. And it was settled out of court. So we don't really know exactly what the settlement is. All I know is that after this lawsuit, the shapes of the headstocks dramatically changed kind of across the board. Let me show you some pictures of a pre-lawsuit guitar by Ibanez. So this here is the 1974 catalog from Ibanez. And you can see on some of these here, right here, I'll even kind of zoom in, even on the acoustics, you can see that looks very much like a Gibson headstock. Some of them don't even have names on them. These ones not so much. They're kind of their own Ibanez thing. But as we scroll through, particularly when we get to these guys here, the Les Pauls, you can see that this open book headstock shape is the common thing that is happening. You can see on their other models, they're not doing that. So the ones that kind of are their own Ibanez shape they're not doing that, but they do have this even up right here. This is even the similar diamond thing on the custom there. It's obvious that they are trying to copy the Gibson Les Paul here. You can see even on their ES models, they have a similar looking headstock with that open book. There's a kind of a custom open book there, even on their basses. They didn't stop just with Gibson also. You can see this looks like a very Fendery headstock right there. Stratocasters, everything looks very, very much like it's copied. Even this kind of looks like it's copied off of a Martin. This one down here as well. So, but you can see that, you know, this right here, this is an absolute copy of a Gibson Hummingbird. Doesn't take it's not hard to see that. This is a Rickenbacker copy. Hey, there's a Flying V copy right there. They were the first to do that. Moving on to 1975, same type of thing. It's basically there wasn't much adjustment in the catalog here. You can see that a lot of these are basically just copies of Gibsons. It's almost like it's getting worse. More in the catalog in 1975. Looks like they're more direct copies. You can see this bass here looks very much like a Fender bass. It's kind of washed out there in the picture, but the headstocks are direct copies. Rickenbacker. This whole catalog here just looks like copies. You can see here though, they're starting to introduce some Ibanez looking things as well. So there are a couple of things that they're introducing that are more classic Ibanez, but for the most part, their catalog is a direct copy. Now let's go to 1976 and we'll see that there is a little bit of a change in what's happening. Look at their headstocks. No longer is an open book, but it's got a kind of a curved top here. The body styles look very similar. SG. Here's more of the ES styles. You can see those headstocks are not looking exactly like it. These Rickenbackers look almost identical. The same thing with the Strats. You can see they're starting to introduce this here. This is more of like the Ibanez Les Paul, but it's not looking exactly like a Les Paul. And then here you can see that they are having, this looks just like the other ones, it just has a different shaped headstock. So in 1976, they're making an adjustment. It's like they're introducing more guitars like these, and they're getting away from, even in this guitar here, that doesn't look just like a Fender. They're kind of trying to create their own thing. The customs, they're putting a different thing in the middle here instead of it being just a direct copy of the Gibson. So something is happening right around 1976, 1977 for them to make some adjustments in their guitars. No longer are they using the original headstocks just like Gibson, but they're changing it up a little bit. If we jump to 1977, you can see that they're really trying to push their own stuff. They're really trying to create their own world in the guitar, not just copying other people, but they're trying to do their own thing, which is awesome because Ibanez is a good company. So you can see this poster here from 1977. All of these guitars, they're not direct copies of Gibsons anymore. I would say that you would be hard pressed to mistake one of these directly for a Gibson. They're creating their own things. If we go to other parts of it, even their Fender-y style guitars up here, the headstocks look different. The shape looks a little bit different. They've made some adjustments. Even in their ES style guitars here, they've changed the headstock pretty good. Then they're introducing this Iceman series here, and those are obviously very, very different guitars. They're concert series guitars over here. Even the tailpieces look a lot different. The layout, this is more their Les Paul style up here. These are basically the same guitar, but they're creating their own thing in it. And if you see their catalog of their artist series, I mean, these guitars are new looking. You look at the headstocks, they're different. They're Ibanez. They're their own thing instead of just copying exactly something from Gibson. So what about my Aria Pro 2 that I thought was a exact copy of the Gibson Custom? Well, it's not exactly a lawsuit, but it is a lawsuit era guitar, and you can even see in the Aria Pro 2 world, which is the Matsumoku factory. That's where this was made. It's a different factory than the Ibanez factory, but you can see even them, they started making changes to their guitars in order to possibly make them not be sued by Gibson as well. This is my guitar right here in the 1977 catalog here. This is an LC550, which means it had the gold hardware instead of the silver hardware. And you can see that in 1977, these looked very, very similar, but you can see This is a 1977 guitar here, and this one, the standard, had this open book right here. If we move to the next year, 1978, they changed up the open book here. You can see that it looks a little bit different. They kind of added a hump here, and they're trying to also follow suit with Ibanez and other guitar manufacturers not wanting to get sued and adjusting the way their guitars look till finally, if you look at a 1981 Aria Pro 2, you can see that the body shape is a little bit different, and the headstock here is completely different. It is no one would look at this and say that's a Gibson headstock. So it's interesting that this lawsuit has actually had a pretty interesting effect across the board. You know, we're looking back at this 70 or 40 plus years back into the 70s, and in a lot of ways, I wonder what the guitar world would be like right now if it wasn't for this lawsuit. Would actually other manufacturers have been as innovative in creating good quality instruments if it wasn't for this lawsuit, if it wasn't for this risk of being sued? Because they were making pretty good money by just straight up copying other manufacturers, but now they have guitars that stand on their own. So how does one of these guys stack up to the quote-unquote real thing? It's not a lawsuit guitar, but let me tell you, this guitar is a great guitar. So the question is, would you ever buy one of these lawsuit guitars? I kind of like my lawsuit era guitar, that Aria Pro 2, but let me know what you think. Would you ever buy a Gibson? All that kind of jazz. Let me know in the comments below. Kennis Russell out. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. And I'll see you in another video.